In this video, I want to share 11 things that I believe supported my recovery. So before we start, I invite you just to close your eyes. If it's safe to do so, obviously don't close your eyes if it's not safe to do so. And as you close your eyes, I invite you just to breathe in. Breathe in through your nose if that's comfortable, into your belly. Breathe out of your nose. As you breathe out, just ensure that the out breath is a little bit longer than the in-breath. As you breathe in, if it's comfortable, you can put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And as you breathe in, just notice the movement of your belly. As you breathe out, just notice the way your belly is moving towards your body. Just take a few breaths, just noticing that movement. I'd like you to just contemplate that this is a really simple technique you can use just to reconnect to your body anytime you notice that you're just getting out of balance. And consider that this act of just reconnecting, getting back into balance, is actually helping your body activate the parasympathetic nervous system response. And this supports important healing functions that your body naturally does when you allow your mind and body to slow down and relax. So when you're ready, you can either just listen with your eyes closed or open your eyes. Do let me know how you found doing that short exercise. So the first thing that supported my recovery was understanding what was hindering my recovery. Specifically, that stress, including psychological stress, was putting my body in a state of sympathetic arousal, otherwise known as fight or flight. It's very hard for the body to heal when we are in that state. And what I understood was that I was in that state a lot of the time. I realized that actually being stressed actually contributed towards me getting sick, and it also hindered my recovery. It wasn't my fault, it's not your fault. We weren't taught how to recognize when we are in the stress response, and I'll make another video where I talk about that in more detail so you can understand when you are in that state. I didn't have that awareness, and I spent 8 years looking for tools and resources that could help me make sense of the condition. The second thing that's important was getting my mindset right. I had to embrace the idea that recovery was possible and there were things that I could do to support recovery. Certainly it helped me to become more patient. Impatience that my recovery was too slow, getting frustrated about that, was just hindering my recovery. I had to learn to be more pragmatic. So if I overdid it, instead of chastising myself, I learned to just accept that I am human. Humans do make mistakes. There isn't anyone on this planet who's perfect. Beating myself up didn't help. It just actually activated that stress response. I had to learn to cultivate acceptance rather than be in resistance. Because when we resist what is, we lose, but only 100% of the time, according to Byron Katie. So the next thing I had to learn was compassion towards myself. Consider if you treated your friends the way you treat yourself. If you are self-critical, would you have any? Okay. Next thing is I needed to learn how to shift from fear, I was in fear a lot of the time, to trust. Okay. Being in a state of trust, add to that the patience and the acceptance, put me in a much better state. And when I was in that more relaxed, trusting state, again, that supported my body's healing. The body can do important repair work when we're in that parasympathetic state. The next thing is I needed to tap into my strength. You are strong. You are stronger than you know. I like the expression, People are like tea bags, no good until they've been in hot water. Now, obviously, there's a balance to be struck. Sometimes things can be too much for us. And at the same time, when we are faced with challenges, it's the people who are resourceful who can navigate those same challenges more effectively. I believe that you'll surprise yourself when you know how to tap into your inner strength. The third thing I had to do was to get super focused. Okay, I had to create routines to support my body's healing. So, for example, with movement, I had to be very focused and take a slow, gradual approach to movement. One of the things I did when I was feeling very poorly was to visualize. Okay, I visualized every day playing a game of tennis, and after a while I realized I could win every point. Started doing great passing shots, serving aces, etc. And what was interesting is when I played tennis for the first time, my sister and I was playing my nephew and his friend. They were only 11, but they were pretty good. But my serve was better than it had ever been. It was not as powerful, but it was more accurate. Okay, so you can start with visualization, as I've mentioned before. Visualizing strengthens muscles. Okay, so the next thing I had to do was really focus on my nutrition. I cut out sugar, processed foods, which means that there's less inflammation in the body. I ate low glycemic index foods. So these are foods that don't release a lot of sugar into the bloodstream very quickly. So look up GI glycemic index. I have got a fact sheet on that if you like. I may pop the link below this video if I can, or ask me for it. I also started doing fasting, and what I'm talking about here is just lengthening the gap between my last bite of food in the evening and my first bite of food in the morning. Now, if you've got digestive issues and if you're feeling hungry all the time, which I was when I first had mecfs, that's probably not a very good strategy. But now I aim to allow around 13, 14 hours between my last meal and my first bite of food in the morning. I focused on eating protein, healthy fats, and lots of veg. Okay, I went on an anti-candida diet. It was a very healthy diet, and Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum advocates that people with mecfs follow this kind of approach. But it's important not to get too extreme about anything. Keep things balanced, keep things relaxed. Fifth thing, I had to learn to listen to my body. When my energy dipped, I needed to pause rather than push through. Pushing through just keeps us stuck in a pattern of boom and bust, and that will get in the way of your body's attempts to heal. Later on, I learned a key strategy for how to respond to energy dips, which is point 6. I had to learn to relax when I experienced symptoms, rather than chastise myself for overdoing it, catastrophize, or distract myself in unhelpful ways. The reality is, I wasn't in danger. Those symptoms weren't comfortable, but I survived them. And the problem is, I was telling my brain that it needed to respond as if there was a threat, like a hungry tiger in the room. So it was really important to learn to relax, because again, just as being in a state of stress hinders recovery, being in a state of calm and relaxation will actually support recovery. There's many approaches to doing that. This is point 7, 8 and 9. So this takes me on to the next point. Number 7, without realizing it, I was practicing body-mind approaches known as bottom-up approaches. So I was doing yoga, qigong, and these are ways of connecting to our body. And connecting to your body means that it then becomes safe to experience the physical sensations we're experiencing and the emotions that we're experiencing. When we're disconnected from our body, there's a good reason why we do that, why we go into our mind and create a lot of thought. It's because we learned early on that it wasn't safe to feel connected to our sensations and our emotions, because it got us into trouble. For example, if a child expressed upset and they were told off, then they learn not to express upset. So the 8th thing is that I had to learn how to identify, sit with, process, and express my emotions appropriately. Some of us have learned to suppress our emotions, as I've just mentioned, so we're not comfortable accepting our emotions. We fear being judged for having a certain emotion. And actually, it's really important to learn to actually just validate your emotions, to say, actually, this is what I'm feeling. This is the emotion I'm experiencing. And it's reasonable for me to be experiencing this emotion given the circumstances, if that's the case. All right. And sometimes the energy dips that I was experiencing was due to emotions. My emotions had got locked up in my body. And so learning to sit with, process, make sense of my emotions actually helped with my energy. There's one occasion where I literally did an exercise to connect to what was going on emotionally. Flu-like symptoms, which I expected to last for a week or two, passed very quickly. So the next thing I had to learn, point 9, is that I had to learn to be true to myself. I had to learn to be less concerned with what other people think. Rest assured, people who are highly opinionated don't give a beep about what you think. All right? So consider that when you're worrying about what people think. It's important to learn to push back when it's safe to do so, to set boundaries with other people. The 10th thing that supported my recovery was learning brain training tools and learning how to activate the parasympathetic nervous system response, otherwise known as the rest and digest response. Brain training is about learning to spot when we're being triggered. And some of those things that trigger us are unconscious. So we need to learn how to spot those unconscious responses. We need to learn how to identify the physical sensations, emotions, thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and behaviors that occur when we get triggered and that are hindering our recovery. And learning how to choose new responses. And with practice, those new responses can become habitual. So, for example, old pattern, if I was upset, bored, frustrated, I might do a distracting activity, watch a stimulating movie, when actually what I needed to do was take care of those emotions, soothe myself. For other people, it might be they reach for biscuits or chocolate or alcohol. And ultimately, in the short term, that's not a massive issue. But if we keep doing those behaviors, that can, again, hinder our recovery. When I was upset, I did tend to push myself too much because I just wanted some distraction. So learning to deal with those emotions was part of what helped me move towards full health. So I hope that's given you some food for thought. I'd love to know what your key takeaway is and what action step you're going to take as a result of watching this video. Keep going, you've got this.